little hype dance.
Did you do your dance? Did you do your dance?
Dance, do your dance quick, ma. Okay, I'm back. And then there were two.
Hey, Nat.
Hey, EJ Marie. How are you?
I am. It's been an interesting few weeks, and today has been a day, but I am so happy to be here looking at your face right now.
You know, it has been an interesting few weeks. I have been having this neck pain, and then I finally realized it's this thing on top of my head. This thing must weigh like 35 pounds. So I've been doing some.
Welcome to the world of hair. Welcome.
Man, but yeah, I had to put Bernice up. My fro was angry at me, so I had to put her up for a little. She needed to go night. So
'tis the season. 'Tis the season. Well, we're back on the couch, Mamacita.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
And welcome all to the Pink Couch April edition. I am EJ, and I'm here with the beautiful Miss Robin. And Lady Kennedy will be joining us very shortly. And it is nice to be back with you on the couch. That's all I have to say. It's nice to be back with you on the couch. This is my zen place right now.
Let's just get to it in terms of what are you bringing to the couch today? So it's been 2 weeks, but today is Pink Couch Day. What are you checking in with today?
I am checking in today with the word ready. That is where I am today. There have been so many things that have been going on. You know, we think about what's happening with the news right now. We got the Chauvin verdict, didn't get a chance to rest before more happened after that. Family, people getting sick, passing away unexpectedly. And just the word that keeps resonating with me is ready. And, we all love to say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And I realize that there are many areas where I stay ready, and there are a few that I have not. So I am really on this piece right now of just ready. I need to stay ready.
Wow. My check-in is I have so much brain spam happening right now. I have so many plates that I'm spinning on a stick right now. There are about 18 that are crashed in the corner that I need to sweep up, but I'm still spinning some sticks.
Yep.
All right, spinning some plates on sticks. It has just been insanely crazy in terms of just work, main hustle, side hustle, all the things that you mentioned in terms of what's in the news today. And I do have to say what is front and center out of all that storm is this verdict. And it is every single day, I say a prayer for my son. Past year, well, I have a daughter too. I say a prayer for her, but it's a different prayer. The past year, 2 years, I've added her. I've morphed her prayer, just given what's happening in the world of just this total lack of regard for life. So, and that's what I'm going to call it. And it's interesting. As we talked about when this verdict came, this has been said so many times, but one thing that I'll speak to is this. When people talk about, hey, we have to make sure we defund the police, I think that's a catchy slogan that is, I think, alarming. So I'm not necessarily a fan of that. Or when people say we have to educate the police. Police manage to not kill non-people of color often. So this is taking it's like, trying to cure cancer with a Band-Aid. That doesn't work. But what I loved about this verdict is that it was a lot of elements across the ecosystem, the system that had to come together to get to this. And it wasn't everything, but it was enough things. It was the video. well, we've had videos before, right? It was the video plus the lieutenant governor. Okay, we've had those before. The video, lieutenant governor charges. People get mad when it's not murder one. You have to make sure you can charge something that can actually go to a real verdict. And I think that's why a lot of these things don't get, the end result. You have, the element of relentless activism that just never stopped. You have, the bittersweet coronavirus with respect to if George Floyd would have happened 2 years ago, no, I don't think all of the airtime would have happened. You have the prosecutor, you have the other police officers who testified against their own. You have, it's the cover. You had so many elements that had to come together. That's the system. And that's just only a fraction of it. You had jurors that actually showed up that really became a diverse jury panel. And so people of color get mad, but sometimes we don't show up to jury duty. So you had all these things that just kept coming and coming. And that to me was way more exciting. And I screamed, I cried, I laughed, and I did a repeat. And so, and because it is so present with other things, I'm behind it. It happens so frequently. So anyway, that was a lot, but it's a big couch.
That it is. And I think, along that theme, that takes us to where we are today and our topic for today and why this was so important to us. So we went back and forth a lot, you and I in particular, about how do we have a conversation about sexual harassment? How do we have it in a way that's not fluffy, in a way that we're representing different perspectives, in a way that drives some sort of real change.
Right.
And so, this notion of harmless, and there's so much meaning behind that harmless. Is this harmless flirtation? It's just a few harmless words. But in this, when we talk about sexual harassment, really, we are asking people, the ask is, how do you harm less through your words? How do you take that away? And so how do we, how are we driving that? And so I know one of the areas, let's just get clear on definitions and where there's some confusion. So what is sexual harassment? What is it? What's the definition? And, it includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature in the workplace or learning environment. And I thought that was interesting, that all the definitions they talked about was it has to be a workplace or a learning environment. Isn't that interesting? Right. So it's like how do you putting caveats around there? And it doesn't always have to be specifically about sexual behavior or directed at a specific person. So again, you talk about loose and nebulous. So is this one of those, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck?
Quack, quack.
Or if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, maybe it's a pig. Just love me. Just love me. Just love me.
With you. I'll get it.
So I think the other, we talk about sexual harassment versus sexual assault versus sexual misconduct.
Yeah.
So we just talked about, harassment, but when you talk about sexual assault, I mean, we had the conversation where we debated between Kavanaugh, right? Was that, and you want to share kind of what you were talking about? We were talking about,
it is one of these things, if I can't internalize it, I can't make it stick. And it's been a fascinating conversation as we've been leading up to this, because I'm like, wait, what are we talking about again? And I can't tell you today if I have been sexually harassed. And the one thing I will add too, particularly in the workplace, it could be something that's happening with you and I'm bear witness, right? And so, and so for me, with Kavanaugh specifically, I was like, we were having the conversation around sexual harassment. I was like, no, I think he raped a girl. But then I honestly couldn't, and what the difference is of what's the difference between sexual harassment versus assault versus rape. And I've looked countless times and I can't internalize it. And I think as a female, where, you know, sexual harassment is typically, stereotypically, often a myth, but stereotypically something that a man is doing or inflicting upon a woman. Not always. It can go the other way. It can man. It can it's gender neutral, and you know, particularly in this day and age, it's non-binary. So it can go many different ways, and I'm struggling with the definition of what it is, and I still to this day. And it's interesting when the host becomes the learner as well. I mean, on all of these, you know, I'm always learning. But this particular one, I am in straight up learn mode. And I come with a set of biases that probably aren't favorable to women. I'm just going to put it out there. We get uncomfortable. We get uncomfortable.
Let's get uncomfy early. And I think that's part of what we're going to explore and what we're going to explore with our two guests today. Because we talk about, you know, sexual harassment. Well, harassment, that covers, you know, it's kind of broad. It covers everything. It's unwelcome verbal sexual attention. Attention can be defined in a lot of different ways, but bottom line, it violates some civil laws, but not really, doesn't have to be a criminal act. Right. You talk about sexual assault, you are very right. That's actual, when you talk about rape, when you talk about something physical, it's sexual contact or behavior that's physical, right? And then and think about that when you're talking about sexual assault, that's something that you can prosecute. It's you know, it's a criminal act.
Right.
And then finally, misconduct is just behavior. It's there was sexual misconduct. It's, you know, that's like when you talk about, sexual misconduct. If you're in a workplace, you can't have two employees or a boss and an employee who are in a relationship, right? Sexual misconduct. So it is sort of the descriptions and the definitions are really nebulous, but that's the beauty of the conversation, the discomfort that we're going to have. And I do want to push you, you know, as we're going through the conversation so we can talk about these biases. And I have to say, we looked long and hard, and believe it or not, we had zero luck with getting anyone who was, you know, either accused, whether rightful or wrongfully accused of being a harasser. There was no one who actually wanted to, and I guess that shouldn't surprise us, but didn't want to come on air and have a conversation. Mm-hmm. So, you know, just want to go on record with that. So I'd love to jump in.
Matt Lauer wasn't available.
Matt Lauer wasn't available this time. We'll try next time.
He wouldn't come forward.
So I want to introduce a fabulous woman. She's a pediatrician. She's a mother. She's an advocate. And she's an overall badass chick. Hey. And that would be Dr. Kelly Motadel. Want to welcome her to the stage. And Kelly, thank you so much for being here with us today. To really explore this topic. Welcome.
Having me. Thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be on the couch.
Of course. So Kelly, we just want you to start with talking a little bit about your connection to this. And we know that you are an advocate and one of the founders of the Time's Up healthcare movement. So tell us a little bit about why this whole topic is relevant and important to you.
Sure. Well, I think you mentioned in the intro, I'm a mom. So first and foremost, it's important to me because I'm raising both a son and a daughter. And I think it's important that both receive good education and are aware of this topic and how they can help eliminate, at least in their lives, being involved in such a situation. But as a physician, you know, when I first got involved with Times Up Healthcare, I was an administrator at a community health center, and patient, you know, advocate, a physician and healthcare provider advocate. And what I was learning both through Carol Emmett Fellowship, as well as a good friend of mine who was starting up the Times Up Healthcare movement, was how sexual harassment was impacting patient care and contributing to physician burnout. And so, physician burnout, another kind of trigger, kind of catchphrase, a lot of people talking about it. I hadn't really made that connection before. And so the more I got involved with the Times Up Healthcare movement, the more I realized how pervasive sexual harassment was in the world of medicine, unfortunately. And being in a community health center setting, I didn't feel it as much as talking to my colleagues who were in the academic world. And it really made me realize how important it was that we had to do this to save patient lives, and we had to do this to preserve our healthcare workforce.
So can you give us some examples of how this was prevalent? How is this impacting, physician burnout? What does that look like?
So first of all, it's just not even getting to the harassment issue, but just the inequities of, how women fall through the pipeline. Med schools are graduating equal numbers of males and females at this point. I think my year, we won't say how long ago that was, but a while ago was kind of when that tipping point happened, where just as many female physicians were graduating med schools as male physicians. But as you go through each next level, you saw that inequity sneaking through to the point where when you look at leadership positions in medical graduation programs, medical graduate programs, academic institutions, the percent of female administrators was, in the teens relative to that 50% who was graduating. So what was happening along the way is, something that really needs to be evaluated and see, where that is coming out at. The studies came out from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine in 2018 that really highlighted a lot of these facts and talked about, the ways it was impacting patient care. There are actual studies that show that female physicians in ERs and female surgeons have better outcomes, like literally a matter of life and death to have women physicians taking care of patients, especially female patients. This is most noticeable. And there's even a study that showed, I believe it was in the ER setting also, that if the ER largely had female physicians, so sure, there were both men and women physicians in there, but the men that were working in that ER department elevated their level of care by working in an environment with more women. So really, again, it goes back to this matters for health. This matters for lives. And, that to me was one of the starkest reasons why, this needed to be worked on.
So the actual issues of harassment, how is that showing up?
So, the physician burnout issue is a big one, right? So women are not speaking up because there is a lot of hierarchy in medicine. So if you are a med student and you are feeling harassed by your intern, by your resident, by your attending, who are you to turn to that you are not potentially risking your career? And all along the way, that hierarchy continues. And if you are even an attending and you are feeling harassed, you're still thinking about your career to get into those leadership positions I spoke about previously. So again, who can you turn to? What systems are in place to protect you over protecting somebody who maybe has been at that institution 20, 30 years because they're part of that, hierarchy, and they've been around and they've been lauded in their career because they bring in research money or because they have good patient care numbers or these other things that are also important to institutions, right? Right. So, who do these women turn to? And then what happens is many end up not going for the positions of leadership, stepping down from positions of leadership, or leaving medicine altogether.
Right. Wow, just another layer of physician burnout on top of everything else. But that's a fascinating stat of better care, woman treating another woman. And what is that attributed to?
More research needs to be done, really, because when you look at it, it wasn't because women kept a patient in the hospital longer. It wasn't because they, were necessarily even following different standards of care. So, what was it related to? Is it because, women are more likely to talk to their patients a little bit longer? Perhaps. Were they seeing just as many patients? Yes. So were their days maybe a little bit longer? Perhaps. All of that still needs to be looked at. But not enough research has been done. But I think we'll find that in general, women as mothers, as caregivers, we might be looking at the whole person more than just the disease as well. But these are my hypotheses, not anything I can back it up with.
Sure.
So I guess really, and you've talked a little bit about why does it happen, and you talked a little bit about sort of the power struggle. And are there, as you all were looking and researching and what you all have, found out through your studies, are there groups that are more disproportionately impacted than others? How much of this is about, status? Is it about level? Is it about education? Is it about what have you all, what have you learned through the work that you've done with Times of Healthcare?
Yeah, I think, one of the important things is, Times of Healthcare was founded primarily by physicians, not exclusively, but one of the things we really had to come to terms with was this was not just happening to women physicians in healthcare. Nurses make up a large portion of, women make up a large portion of the nurses, but there's, environmental services staff, there's, cafeteria staff, there's plenty of other staff in the hospital who in the medical setting who are also at risk. And so when you talk about, the folks who might be, more impacted, imagine being somebody who's not a physician and being harassed by somebody who has a degree in the hospital. Then your voice gets even smaller, unfortunately, and you feel even less empowered to speak up if you don't even have, an equivalent degree, let alone, others who are supporting you around you, right? So there's now more attention being given in the physician circles to this issue. So there are more groups, I would say, that women physicians can lean on. But that's not necessarily the case for other folks in the medical world. Where are they turning to for their support? So Times of Healthcare really is, there for anyone in the healthcare industry because there are not as many resources for folks other than physicians, even in the healthcare industry, for this topic.
Have you heard from your male colleagues that may not be at Time's Up? Have you heard from them? What has been the receptivity of that?
I would say it's variable. There are definitely he for she individuals and physicians, in this world, which is wonderful. But sometimes, folks that we thought were he for she ended up part of a scandal later or a controversy later where maybe they really weren't. And those are hard pills to swallow sometimes when you think you have an ally and they know all the right things to say, but they didn't necessarily follow through with their actions. I think, I had a male boss at the time I was going through this, and I had opportunities to have a lot of one-on-one conversations to help educate. And I think that's how we get through to identify, the male allies, is really having those conversations and bringing people who may not realize that allyship is important into helping be the voice as well, and helping to be that supportive bystander when they see something happening. So there are definitely, supportive men. And then there are those who feel like, it's all overblown and it's not a problem. Or there's even women who are kind of like, hey, I went through it. It is what it is. So, there's a lot of education across both genders, or across all genders, that can happen. But I think, I'm seeing, in social media and in the support groups, et cetera, more and more male allyship, which is great.
So what would you say to someone like me? Because as I was saying at the beginning, where there's a part of me that it is what it is. But then there's a huge part of me, and EJ and Kennedy will know, I'm incredibly empathetic. So anyone who's feeling less than positive or neutral, I can absolutely empathize with that. And so what would you say to someone like me who probably has observed a lot of it and it didn't even hit my radar, What would you say?
You know, when I first started down this path, I now recognize that my radar wasn't as sensitive as it needed to be. And so, you know, when I talk to other people who are just sort of learning about this, you know, I start to give some examples of things that didn't occur to me, and kind of looking at it through a different lens. And I'll give you a personal example. And so sometimes, you know, kind of thinking about your own life and looking back, when I started my residency training program, my chief resident, or, you know, the kind of lead residents of the program, so they've been there 2 to 3 years already, there was myself and one other woman who was my year. The rest of my class was men. And he pulled us aside and he said, if you ever get pregnant, I'm the first one who should know, not the father. I need to know because I have to do your schedule. And I didn't think anything of it. Nothing, you know, I didn't think anything. I was like, oh yeah, he's got to do my call schedule, so it's important, you know, he's got to know that, right? And in retrospect, I'm like, oh my gosh, did he really say that to us? Like, and he was serious, right? So it's starting to look for it and starting to identify things that probably have happened to you that were unwelcome, right? That's the definition, is unwelcome. It was sexual in nature. In this case, it was gender, you know, targeting. And trying to recognize that those things aren't okay. You know, that was not okay that he said. It didn't make him a bad guy. You know, I still enjoyed working with him the next year, you know, and never felt, you know, that he was in any way intentionally, you know, targeting me or my female colleague. But, you know, those things have to be called out, right? If I had said to him, like, that's not okay, he would have thought about it the next time, but I didn't, because I didn't think anything of it. So what I would say to you is, you've got to start looking for it.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to start looking for it so that you can help educate those around you, that you can help change the lens. You've got to adjust your own lens to identify those things that somebody else might be uncomfortable having said to them. And you've seen it, you know, you've seen where somebody kind of puts their head down after somebody's made a comment or you know, kind of, you know, slinks into themselves. You know, you've got to look for those body cues of what's making other people uncomfortable and kind of flip your lens to see how that might have been taken and why they might have felt that way. And I think that's the start.
Okay. That's fair.
I have one more question, and we could go a whole bunch of different places, but I guess, you know, the last one, and we'll go fast, is, you know, we talked about this. You talked about identifying this person. We're really quick to cancel people, right? So they've now been identified as someone who has, and we're like, everybody, you know, mob justice. Let's go. What, you know, how do you think about, and how do you talk to people about, okay, you've identified someone who's a harasser. Is there grace, or do we go for mob justice?
Oh, that's such a hard one because, you know, human nature, your first instinct is to cancel, right? Is to feel negative. But I think medicine has helped me because I've had patients, or in my case as a pediatrician, parents who really were not pleasant to work with, but you still have to take care of the child. So you can't you can't put people in a box. You have to recognize, you know, no one is all evil and no one is all good, and we all got flaws, and we've got to, you know, be willing to look for the common ground. So I think when you know, someone's been accused and or, you know, somebody is found to actually have been a sexual harasser, the hard thing to do, the uncomfortable thing to do, but is to think about ways to help them along the road to redemption. And maybe it's not even something you actually have to do, but just trying to think in those terms so that if the next time it's somebody you know or somebody you're close enough to say something, you'll have have had some time to think about how you might help them through that. It's, again, much easier said than done. And it's, you know, and it might take some time, and it depends on if you were the one who was the victim, right? And how far away you are from that situation, how you can handle it. But really just trying to think about the common ground and the ways to move forward.
Beautiful. Dr. Kelly, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, and appreciate you bringing your truth to a really uncomfortable topic and getting us to a place where we are really trying to make it more comfortable to talk about this sort of topic. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thanks for the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
You know, before we bring the next guest on, you know, one of the things that just reminded me of is that we are really clear on what it is when it's at the extreme, you know, someone grabbing or, you know, on totally unwanted advances. I'll give you a promotion if you know, give me this sexual favor. And I think as we have evolved as a society, things that were just, oh, boys will be boys, that might have been able to pass in the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, that as we evolve, I also think the subtleties, the message, the message, but the subtleties, the definition has also, but at the end of the day, I think for me anyway, the takeaway is just how what she was saying was how that person was made to feel. And so we can mess around with the definition all we want, but at the end, that's the yardstick. So
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's bring up our next guest. We have coming to the couch, Miss Omi. I'm going to mess up her last name. Mabwa. Did I say it right? Mabwo. Mabwo. Oh my God. I said it right. I know I'm saying it right. Mabwo. Hey, you went and got married on me. You didn't invite me to the wedding because it was COVID. So I get
Whoa. You were invited. It was the whole Zoom thing. It was COVID. It's not my fault.
Is that what we're going with?
That's what we're going with.
Okay.
That's what we're going to take with.
I'll take
There's
that.
always a reason to party. We'll come back together. Don't even worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm now, today actually is my 2-week anniversary of my second vaccination. So I'm free. I'm good. So, okay.
I'll send you my address. You can come over. It's nothing.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome to the couch. Of all the topics that we've had, I knew we would always have you to the couch. I didn't know why. But let me introduce you. You are a social worker, entrepreneur, youth basketball coach, counselor, educator. You are also a, am I going to break the news? You're officially my baby sister. By, I try to make it by blood, but you are my baby sister by way of Miss EJ here. So I'll let you say a little hey before I go a little bit more into an introduction.
Hi, Sissy. For all who don't know, this is my baby sis.
My baby sister.
Excuse me. Our baby sis.
Yes. We just grew up in different homes. So you are a lover of all things basketball, Nigeria, and the kids. And what is, I think, really special about what you're doing is helping kids find their voice. So whether it's the youth or young adults, helping them find their voice. And particularly with this topic that we're having, it is often the times when sexual harassment is occurring where we're not using our voice. And so, when we think about, whether it's Andrew Cuomo, when we think about Dr. Blassie, when we think of Kavanaugh, when we think of, the list is getting longer and longer as we as a society, and particularly since Me Too and Time's Up have occurred, the list has just grown, Matt Lauer and others. But for you, the images of someone you knew and trusted, why did you decide to share your story with us today?
It was never actually a plan to share my story. It was just a part of my past that was there, and it happened, and that was it. And my sister called me one day and she was like, we're thinking about this thing. Do you know anyone who's ever, been a victim or been through sexual harassment? I was like, yeah. She said, who? I said, me. She said, what? How? I didn't know. It's not just something that you pick up the phone and, hey, guess what happened to me today, guys? Like, it's not something that you do. So in growing up and always being told, be strong, hold your own. If it doesn't kill, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So you may just stand on that. it hasn't killed me yet. So I guess I'm able to push through it.
Mhm.
And while, a few setbacks happen along the way, which nobody may have known why, but, it quiets you for a little bit and you step back. And for a while, you don't even realize what's happening to yourself. You just kind of go into your own shell, and that's where you are. And until somebody actually talks to you and brings it up and they say something, you're like, wait a minute, that's happened to me. Or I know someone that happened to. And so some of my most memorable, I won't even say most memorable, but some of the things that I think about most that I think should really be looked at in light of, gymnastics scandals and things happening at different universities are nobody's looking out for that athlete that is promised an education and is promised to be taken care of like someone is their own parent when they leave the house.
Mhm.
People will sell you a bill of dreams. Your child will be fine. They'll need nothing. Everything's okay. But what they don't tell you is, I'm going to talk to your child however I want to. I will objectify them. If there are males around, it doesn't really matter. If there are male coaches there or from other sports, they can come and talk to you and say whatever they want to say to you as well. And it's fine. Especially if you're not at, say, a big name program. Nobody cares. They don't care about you. You're a statistic, you're a number. If you're not doing what needs to be done to bring in the money, you're not important. Women's basketball from 99 to 2004, just told on my age, don't listen. It's not true. I'm not really that old. Who cares? We were in a Tennessee. We were in a UConn. We were struggling to win games. We had our same fan base that followed us around everywhere we went. Thanks, EJ. And, would be there when they could to come watch us. We're not selling out gyms. So basically, we're paying for you to go to school, sit down and shut up. Do what we tell you. So for me, for that one, it was one experience. We were on a road trip. And our coach, this was my senior year, wonderful person that she was, would just make little comments here and there. And one of the things that she said to me, she said one day when we were going to a game, so is there anybody here who, would want to go into coaching or want to do anything like that? And I was like, I would. A couple other people said they would too. She looked at me and she said, I don't think so. You need to take those twins and everything else, go get on a runway or go do something else because I don't think that's for you. You need to use those and go do something with it. So that's in a whole car with everybody. Nobody says where. We're just kind of looking like, was she? But then you also have to look at the source because this is also a person who everything that she did or created for herself or injected into herself was done to further her career. So it's not even a sense that she may not have thought she was doing something wrong, but that's how she got ahead. And that's how she made her way, was by putting herself out there. But then these are also people who will tell a team, they'll force girls, you will get on birth control. You will. You will not have any children while you're playing. If you get pregnant, we're going to go take care of that. We are. We're going to take care of it. Don't tell your mom. Don't worry. We're going to take care of it. Makes kids go to their house after a loss or anything else to clean their house, or let's go read books about the Karma Sutra. Let me educate you guys. Let me tell you a little something. Now, if your child or if somebody else were to come and say something like this, would you believe them? They have deniability. It's not going to happen. So, and then it also goes back to like when you're growing up or anything else, people look at you, you get the little side comments, oh, you're getting older, you're filling out nicely. So you're trained to deal with it. Okay, so I guess, I grew up nicely, I got the compliments, and you don't realize till you're older that wasn't supposed to happen. Like all these people that you look up to when you're growing up, they're not supposed to be the ones objectifying you and making you feel some kind of way. So now when I walk by you next time, I'm like this, like, oh, I don't want you to see me. You don't have to see me. It's okay. And that's what you hold on to.
So something.
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
Well, as I moved on to my, not really realizing that I've internalized all of these things for so long, as one of my sisters would tell me, I'm always the person out there trying to help a broken bird. She's like, you're always out there. You want to help a wounded bird. You attract them. It's what you do. Why? She was like, I don't even know why you do that. Well, because I don't want people to feel how I felt. I don't want you to go through what I went through. So if there's a way that I can stop that, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I will tell somebody, be unapologetically yourself. Whoever it is that you want to be that person. If you have something to say
mm-hmm.
it. What's the worst that could happen? Mm-hmm. They're going to look at you the same way they're looking at you right now. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change anything. Be you and be unapologetic about it.
Right. Wow. So, wow, there's a lot there. So in the moment you had mentioned that you felt a certain kind of way, that this was not okay. And what was it about you what was not about you? Why? Tell me more about what that feeling was. What was telling you that that was not okay? How did you know that was not okay?
I would say it was like in my gut. Like when you see somebody and they start talking to you, like sometimes you don't know why you don't like somebody, but it's just something about them that rubs you the wrong way. And then after a while, anytime she would open her mouth, I'd be like, I think my blood pressure is raising now. Mm-hmm. And just every comment became about something sexualized, or every comment became about what you can do to get ahead, that you don't really have to work as hard for it if you can look hard. So if you can walk around and, have this a little bit more low cut, have something a little short, do something else, you may not have to work as hard. You don't have to earn it. Go get it. And that, to me, that wasn't okay, because I have the father who's a historian the professor who will tell you, what are you going to play basketball for? Go read a book. Go study. Your education is what's going to take you far. So my whole life, I've been told that I need to study and I need to work hard. And now on the flip side, I have someone telling me that all I have to do is have a pretty face and go buy my body, and I can go do whatever I want in life. And it's fine. Everything will be okay.
Did you share that feeling or any of those incidents with anyone?
I had a teammate or two that we talked to, but no, my sister's never heard this story before, ever.
Why? You guys share everything. Why do you think you did not share it with the girl right there? Yeah.
For one, I think in my mind, it was a sign of weakness, because that meant that I couldn't take care of and I couldn't handle myself. So if I have to, yes, I will call my father if there's a spider on the floor. If there was one time it was a lizard in my apartment, can he do anything from 300 miles away? Absolutely not. But Daddy, it's a lizard in my house. I need you to come get him. But for something like this, it didn't seem like the right thing to talk about.
Wow.
I'm stressed, and it's very intentional that Robin is guiding this conversation, because, even when we started this place, it was, I was there. Yeah. We would talk. And it was that whole, I have, you talking about it now, that notion of I have to be strong. I can't show weakness. I can handle it. I can do all of those things. And so you've had to do that, and you've carried that on. And, there's also probably the other piece where, your family, especially your siblings, do have a little cray-cray in our blood, and we probably would have had a reaction a little different than, they probably would have expected. So I get that also, wanting to prevent that. But, you're here now. Yeah. You're here now, and you're telling the story. But thinking back to that 21-year-old girl who was in the sports programs, who was being, who was dealing with her teammates and the coaches and the others and the what have you. Is there anything, what would you say to that harasser, the person who is harassing you? What would you say to them today that you couldn't say to them then?
I I've come to a point now where I'm like, you didn't win. You may have knocked me down. I've stumbled for some years. Am I where I thought I would be right now? No, but I'm getting there because there were a lot of things that I told myself that I couldn't do because of the many years of, we'll call it mental abuse that you go through sometimes. So you tell yourself, no, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You can't do it. You're going to try and you will fail. Like that's what's going to happen to you. So you might as well just have a seat, relax, and see what happens next. But you didn't win. I'm stronger than I was before. And watch for me because I'm coming for you.
Why couldn't we get that coach on the couch?
Right.
Wait, what's their address? I digress.
Exactly. So I guess so now that's what you would say to that person. If you could talk to you at 20, your 20-year-old self, what would you tell the 20-year-old that she needed to hear at that time?
I would tell her that you are enough. You're enough. You don't have to validate yourself for anybody else. You can stand on your own 2 feet. And basically, you are enough. You don't have to keep hiding behind. You don't have to internalize. You don't have to think of yourself as less than. You're enough. And you can do whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Amen and amen.
Now, let me piggyback on that question. What do you tell you are surrounded by young adults and kids? What do you tell them?
I've actually had a lot of them talk to me about things they would not talk to their parents about. My phone will ring at 11 o'clock. My phone has rung at 1 o'clock in the morning. Coach, are you awake? If I wasn't, I am now. What do you want? So I just basically try to empower them and let them know it's okay to feel however you're feeling. If you're having a problem with a parent, if you're having a problem with how this person is treating you, how anybody else is treating you, it's okay to have your feelings. And you're a kid. You do not have to take on the weight of the world. You don't. There are people here to help you. And I tell them, you might not have a voice yourself. You know that I am a few crayons short. I'm a few cards short of a full deck. And what you can't say, I gladly can and I will. I don't care. I had one who would call me from Bakersfield in the summertime because, that's where people might have been or some might have been in a different state. I said, I know how to drive and I can afford a plane ticket. You tell me where I need to be and at what time. If you need that voice, I'm there. I've talked to people's grandmothers in different places, parents. If you want your child to be successful, you have to be in a place where you can listen and you have to receive everything that's going on. That goes for everybody. That goes from teachers to coaches to anybody out there. You have to listen. You have to be able to listen. There was a program that we did once with some of the Nigerian youth, and we brought parents and kids together. We called it Conversations with Our Daughters. And I purposely made it very uncomfortable for everybody and asked the parents, asked the kids, what do you expect from each other? Oh, I want to be heard. I want my daughter to be able to talk to me. Do you mean it? Can she really talk to you about anything that's going on? Can she talk to you about that man who's been staring at her every time she leaves the house and that's why she doesn't want to go to a party anymore? That doesn't happen. It does. It's been happening for 30 years and it's not going to stop today unless you stop it. Does that really happen to you guys? And then they want to cry. Don't cry, make it better. We're past the crying stage. There are reasons why people don't want to do stuff. If I was a happy-go-lucky person who went out every weekend and we're enjoying ourselves, we're partying, and then one day I'm like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to go anymore. And I sit in my house all the time, or I fight you every time that you want to go somewhere, there's something wrong. Pay attention to the small signs that are going on with people. Everyone always says, check on your strong friends.
Right. Yeah.
You have to check on your strong friends. Yes, I can be there for everybody else, but at what point are you going to stand up and be there for yourself and advocate for yourself and do everything else? It doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think a lot of what you said just resonates on so many different levels, particularly, as I was raising my kids, I wanted them to feel empowered to use their voice. But situations like this is a team sport. And if you don't have your voice, if you're not making them threes tonight, you gotta rely on somebody to drive it to the hole. And so I think as a community, whether you are whether it's male, female, whatever, however you identify, I think that is so very important, and particularly what you're doing of someone who may not be ready to speak up, to have an advocate who is unafraid to do it at that particular moment is huge, huge. At the end of the day, whatever needs to be said, as long as it gets said. So,
like, I was like you for a while. Like, sometimes I look at stuff and I'm like, okay, well, what did you do for that to happen to you? Or, I'm looking at it like, well, something had to happen for it to happen. But no, it's all learned behavior. And it comes to a point where if nobody speaks up, it's just going to continually get worse.
Absolutely.
Like, I won't say that I think it's okay, everything that's happening in the world, and this person is attacking this person and everything else. But if you wait until 30 years later for anybody to open their mouth and say something, what would have happened when it happened the first time somebody opened their mouth and said it wasn't right?
Right.
Would it continue to happen for 20 years?
Exactly.
Well,
that was a mic drop moment.
I know. And on that note, thank you, baby sis. Thank you, Omi. Thank you for coming to the couch. Thank you for using your voice and being that advocate for those that are around you who aren't ready to necessarily use theirs. So thank you.
And I'm proud of you, baby sis.
Yes. Very proud. Very proud. Bye. Okay. So we're now in the segment of the do something. I am going to kind of run through a few things that I think, and then we'll switch over to you to have your last word. Wow. So as I started off, when the host becomes the student, and each one of these that we do, there are a few things that both of our guests said today that just landed different. And at the end of the day, it all is in the recipient, where they are drawing that particular line. So I just want to, at the start, talk about, it is not for me. It is not for you. It is not for any other person to judge what someone else's line is. Period. And the other thing that I'll say before we move into some quick do somethings is that it is a damn shame that when someone is saying I was sexually harassed, and particularly I would say if it's coming from the mouth of a woman, sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, or raped, the burden of proof is so heavy. We are starting, as women, we are starting from negative 100. Murder is a little different. Kidnapping, a little different. For crimes against women, we're starting behind. And so, the way that we get to an even playing field is a lot of what Omi was saying. And I think it starts with one of the do something is get uncomfortable and awkward. This is not a fun conversation to have, particularly as a bystander, I would say, if something's occurring, should I get involved? Not really my story. Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't matter if it's directed towards you or if it's around you. Get uncomfortable, get awkward, making sure that we're having these conversations. And just as we were talking about on our last show, where we were talking about suicide, there is this. We've got to broaden our messaging that we're having with kids, that we're having with our siblings, our colleagues, our parents. We're so clean. When you're growing up, it's, don't look both ways before you cross the street. Don't talk to strangers. If someone approaches you, those types of things. Don't. Yeah. So here's the do. of when you are feeling that feeling, and that's what Omi was talking about. There's just this feeling that is making you feel less than. Speak up. If you can't speak up for yourself, speak to someone you can. In those particular moments with Omi, she was not comfortable given your family dynamic and didn't want to have this perception. But she did speak to her teammate. And so, having that conversation and speaking up, I think is huge, and getting uncomfortable. And so that does lead me to the second one around say something. Man, that's so hard. It's so hard. And sexual harassment isn't a new topic. Mm-hmm. It's been one that's been under the rug. It's been in the back conference room. It hasn't been as talked about until recent years with Harvey Weinstein and others, that it's become more in the forefront. But saying something and shedding a light on something has such a powerful effect. And, I'll just say, we do these shows. Our bar is quite low in terms of if we're able to impact one person. And all the shows that we've done, we are batting 1,000. We've done at least one, and we've done more. But there is someone right now that is being harassed. There's someone right now that you probably witnessed being harassed. And for someone who might have been at a suck it up buttercup, boys will be boys, how dare I, or how dare you, define what that line is for someone? You don't know their experience. You don't know their upbringing. You don't know the detriment to what that is doing, the lasting effect of what that has on a person. My suck it up is someone else's not okay, and vice versa. And how dare I? So I'll end with that and turn it over to you, EJ.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I guess the final word that I would say, huge thank you to Dr. Kelly Modadell, to Mrs. Omaloga Mwabo.
One time for the
thank you. Thank you.
I'll change my name.
Right. Thank you for sharing your stories and your truth. This is uncomfortable. This is awkward. So what? Because if it was happening to you or your son or your daughter, you would want to be able for someone to step in, for them to have someone who they could go to, for someone to say stop or to say something. And to that end, we're not all about mob justice. Show grace and show mercy. Some harassers don't know they're harassers.
Right.
Educate them and hold them accountable. But if we don't have the conversations and we don't move forward, shame on us.
Yep.
Shame on us. So it's a new day. You have a choice. You have a choice. Each and every one of us do. And today I choose to speak up, and I challenge you with my whole heart. I challenge you to do the same. So you're not having a conversation and learning about your loved ones 20 years later. So that's it for us on the couch today. Yes. My love to you, Miss Netta, to Miss Kennedy. Miss Kennedy, who has been working her magic behind the scenes and doing all this production. We love you. We thank you. You will see her face vibrant and shiny on our next episode. And we will see you in May. Can you believe it's already about to be May? In May. And we're going to just know, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Remember, like, follow, share with some friends. Somebody needed to hear this message today. Be the person who shares it with them. We love you. We thank you. And we're out.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.